On July 16th, a company in Beijing released a model called Kimi K3. Literally within hours, the usual channels had the usual headline: insane, unbelievable, the best model ever made. So I did the boring thing. I went to the independent scoreboard, the one the labs do not control, and I sorted the data. And what I found was stranger than the hype and more interesting. Kimi K3 is not the smartest model in the world. It actually comes fourth. And yet, on tasks that look most like actual work, it sits at the very top, ahead of models that outrank it everywhere else. This is the story of how an open model from China, the largest of its kind ever built, quietly closed the gap on the two most powerful closed models in the world, Claude Fable 5 and GPT 5.6, on the one thing that pays the bills, and why that should change how you think about open source today. So let's start with the number of that deflates the hype. On the Artificial Analysis Index, which blends 9 independent tests of reasoning and knowledge, Kimi K3 scores 57. That puts it fourth, behind Claude Fable 5 at 60, and 2 configurations of GPT 5.6. On raw coding, same picture, a score of 76, sitting in a tight pack of models, all within a few points of each other. Respectable, not remarkable. If the story ended here, K3 would be a footnote. A big Chinese model that came forth, but the headline number hides the actual finding, because intelligence and usefulness are not the same thing. And this model is the clearest proof of that. So where it wins. Now watch what happens when you stop asking how smart a model is and start asking how well it does at a job. A job is not a trivia question. A job is a long chain of steps. Browse for something, use a tool, write code, run it, read the error, fix it. An hour later, still be on task. That is what these next benchmarks measure. On BrowseComp, which tests an agent finding hard information across the web, K3 comes first. On Program Bench, first. On the SW Marathon, a test of sustained software work, first. On Automation Bench, first. On knowledge work, the online research task, the slide building task, the finance task, first, and first. On legal work, benchmark run by a law firm, 95% first. On long context reasoning, holding a huge document in mind and answering across it, 75%. Again, first. See the pattern? It loses the exams, but it wins with work. If you want one image that captures it, here it is. Researchers set 4 models, the same real task, optimize a piece of chip, design software, and keep improving it over 20 hours of work. The vertical axis is how much faster they made it. The red line is Kimi K3. It reaches a 59% speed up. The best result on the board, edging out Claude Fable 5 at 57. But look at when it gets there. Follow K3 across and it hits its stride about 5 hours. Fable, the blue line, takes closer to 11 to reach the same height, the same finish, half the time, on a real engineering task, not a quiz. So that's pretty insane. That is what people mean when they say, whether they say it clearly or not, when they say the model is good at work. So how does a model come forth in intelligence and first in work exactly? It is not an accident. It is the architecture. And this is where Kimi K3 is genuinely different from the models it is fighting. Start with the size, 2.8 trillion parameters. That is the largest model of any of its kind anyone has shipped. To put it in scale, most frontier models are believed to sit in the hundreds of billions, so K3 is not a little bigger than Claude Fable 5 or GPT 5.6. It is built on a different order of magnitude. But here is the twist, and it is the whole secret. It does not use the whole 2.8 trillion at once. Kimi K3 is a mixture of experts. Think of it as 896 specialists sitting in one building. For any single step of task, the model wakes up just 16 of them, the ones that fit the job, and leaves the other 880 asleep. So it carries the knowledge of 2.8 parameter giant, but on any given step it only pays to run a sliver of it. That's how you get the model of this size of a skyscraper that runs at the cost of a small office. The closed labs guard the exact numbers, but the principle is the same across the frontier, and Kimi has pushed it further than anyone. Now add the second piece, a new attention design they call Kimi Delta Attention, built to hold 1 million tokens of context, an entire code base or a stack of contracts without slowing to a crawl. Put those together and you see the design philosophy. Fable 5 and Sol are engineered to be as intelligent as possible per answer. Kimi K3 is engineered to stay useful and cheap across very long jobs. They optimized for the exam, Moonshot optimized for the shift. Which brings us to the number that makes the labs nervous. Kimi K3 costs $3 per million input tokens and $15 for output. With caching, the input drops to 30 cents. Compare that to the frontier flagships it's trading blows with on agentic work, which runs several times higher. So here is the fair question, and I'll let you answer it. If a model comes fourth on intelligence but first on actual work, and it costs a fraction of the smarter ones, what exactly is the premium buying? For a research problem, maybe the smartest model is worth every cent. For running tens of thousands of agents through a long workflow, the maths start looking very, very different. And this is the part worth slowing down on, because it changes an old assumption. For years, the story of open models was catch up. The free ones were a year or two behind, useful for tinkering, not for serious work. You paid for the frontier because the frontier was clearly better. The gap did not close evenly. It closed on one specific front first, not on raw intelligence, where the closed labs still lead. It closed on work, on the long tool using agentic tasks that actual businesses run. And it closed from an unexpected direction, not from an American lab, but from Chinese ones. So in this case, Moonshot. DeepSeek before it, using clever architecture to leapfrog rather than outspend. So maybe the question is no longer, is open source and catching up? Maybe it is on the work that matters. Has it already caught up? And were we watching the wrong scoreboard? Before you go and download it, the honest part, because this channel does not skip it. Kimi K3 is being called the world's first open model of this scale, but as I record this, you cannot actually download it. The weights are promised by July 27th. Until then, open is a word on a roadmap, not a folder on your disk. The independent scoreboard even lists the model as proprietary for now, because openness you cannot yet touch is a promise, not a fact. Moonshot has kept this promise before with earlier models. The odds are good, but good odds are not the same as done, and a channel that trades its receipts waits for the receipts. So the real test comes at the end of the month. If the weights land, then everything I just showed you, the work, the endurance, the price, becomes something any company on earth can run its own machines on. This is not a model release. This is a shift in who gets to build. So is Kimi K3 better than Claude or GPT on being brilliant? No. It comes fourth, and the labs it trails are genuinely ahead on reasoning. On doing the long, patient and glamorous work that most AI actually gets useful, it is right there at the top at a fraction of the price, and soon, maybe, yours to keep. The smartest model in the room used to be the whole game. Kimi K3 is a quiet argument that the hardest working one might matter more. So the weights land around July 27th, hopefully. I'll be watching Hugging Face, and I'll tell you exactly what shows up. Sources, everyone, in the description.